for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
all in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur.
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement, et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens. Le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Bittt.Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Locage. If the last time you went to Locage was when the Habs won the Cup, it's time you went back to Locage. It's gonna be sick.
Matt Ohayon in for Tony Marinaro on this Marinaro. Sorry. Oh wow, got to restart. Matt Ohayon in for Tony Marinaro. If he saw that, he would murder me. Wow. On this Friday, February 10th in Montreal, not nearly as cold as it was last week. It is the Sick Podcast. Thank you very much for joining us wherever you are listening. Sick Podcast brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. They are a full leading logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different. Also brought to you by Locage. If the last time you went to Locage was when the Habs won the Cup, well, it's time you go back to Locage because the menu will surprise you. As well, brought to you by Tibi. Brewed in Quebec and winner of a dozen international awards, Bittt at Tibi offers quality microbrewery beers made with premium ingredients for everyone's taste. Bittt at Tibi beer, embrace your true nature. Well, it's been a very quiet week for the Montreal Canadiens. I guess considering the week and a half that the NHL has had with a couple big trades, the Canadiens, I wouldn't have made a splash. They more made a little, sprinkled a little water in the bucket, a little drop. But they signed Jordan Harris to a 2-year contract. The Canadiens haven't played since January 31st, of course. They were on the bye week, and there was the All-Star break. And to not really break it all down, but to discuss some hot-button topics about the Canadiens, we have Charles-Alexis Brisebois. Charles, how are we doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Matt?
I'm doing all right because I haven't seen the Canadiens lose in a while, or I haven't seen them win in a while. I don't know how to really approach this lately, but let's start with Jordan Harris because that happened today. Jordan Harris, 2-year contract, $1.4 million average on the salary cap. I think it's a good deal. I mean, not much to complain about there. Jordan Harris has been pretty good. Hasn't really proven anything to get really anything more than that. But I think he's shown that he could be a serviceable NHLer in the future. And this is kind of his prove it contract for that.
Yeah, exactly. It's really a typical bridge contract. He signed it 10 months after his entry-level contract, which is really rare in the NHL. But, he signed it after going to the NCAA. And now a few months before it expired. So really, I have the feeling that Kent Hughes and Jordan Harris knew what his value was. He's not a guy that is going to score a lot of goals. He's not a first pair defenseman, but he's a really reliable guy. He really has a head on his shoulder. And, he has 2 more years to prove himself and to say, in 2025, I may deserve a bigger contract, but for now, I'm not necessarily that kind of defenseman. So nothing to argue here. They decided to do it right now, which is probably a good idea. We're not going to have to talk about it during the summer because, right now we're not talking about it because it's in the middle of the season. We have other things to talk about, but in the summer, if we were in August, we would have said, what's going on with Jordan Harris? Why is it so complicated? We have an idea that it's going to be about 1.5. Why is it not signed yet? Is there a problem? So right now, there's absolutely no problem. He's here to stay, and I think it's a great news.
Yeah, I think it's great news too because there's been games where he's never really done anything that you said, I don't see it. I don't see it with this kid. It's either you're not noticing him, which is the typical cliche of that's not a bad thing for a defenseman, or he's making great plays with his feet because he's a great skater, and it's exactly what this team needs, and it's exactly what they're working towards.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's progressing, and he's gonna use those next few years to continue to progress, because he has less than a year in the NHL. He played 10 games last year, 40 something games right now. So he doesn't have a lot of experience like most of the the defensive core, obviously, but he's gonna continue to progress on that, and he's gonna give some latitude to Kent Hughes, because I'm looking at Cap Friendly right now, and you have a lot of defensemen under $1 million. You have Chris Weidman, you have Kovacevic, you have Jacky, Goulet, Barron, and Harris at 1.4. It's almost a rookie deal, because 1.4 is not a lot of money. So if they free the contract of Joel Edmondson, that defensive core next year is not going to cost a lot of money.
Yeah, and it gives just a lot of flexibility, a lot of long-term planning for the contract of Cole Caulfield that's to come. Obviously, he's sidelined with the shoulder injury, but we'll see further down the road, what kind of defenseman Jordan Harris really is once he reaches his potential. I like that he's a little bit older, spent some years in university. That's always a good thing. It's something that the Canadiens, organizationally at least, they never really tend to let their players develop too much. So that was good. And he made it. He made it to the big club, and we'll see what we'll see what this 2-year contract brings from Jordan Harris. All right, so. The trade deadline is coming up. It's less than a month away now, and it's coming up fast, like really fast. And we saw 2 big trades in the past week and a half or so. First, we saw Bo Horvat go to the New York Islanders, and then he signed that long-term contract. Whether it's a good contract or not, I don't really care. It's not the Canadiens, so it doesn't really concern me all that much. But also, just this past week, we saw Vladimir Tarasenko get traded to the New York Rangers. Now, that was a very interesting move, because I feel it's weird. The reaction on Twitter, it's always nice to, whenever a trade happens, I go right to Twitter just to see what the reaction is. And it was kind of mixed. It was like, oh, I don't think the St. Louis Blues gave up, they didn't get too much of a return. And then I'm seeing, oh, wow, the Rangers, they gave up a lot. What does that mean for the Canadiens heading into the deadline? So I'm going to ask you, do those 2 trades these are big time players getting traded, and first round picks being involved in those trades. Do you think this affects any potential return the Canadiens could get on any of their trade chips?
Yes and no. Yes, because every time a good player gets traded, it creates a market, and it creates comparable for Kent Hughes and for everyone else. But at the same time, the Montreal Canadiens, they do not have a Vladimir Tarasenko. They do not have a Bo Horvat to trade. And the trade deadline is in a few weeks, so maybe the market is gonna change, and maybe the pressure is going to be harder on some GMs to make a trade. So I'm not sure how exactly it affects the Montreal Canadiens, but clearly you see that there is a desire to improve. The New York teams, they really want to make the playoffs, and they really want to try to win that Stanley Cup, and they made the move in consequences. You talked about the Bo Horvat deal. You heard what Lou Lamoriello has to say, too long for too much money, but he knew what he had to do. He knew that this is the market, this is the rule he's going to play by, and he decided to pull the trigger on that trade. So, the good teams want to improve. That's something very clear to me.
Yeah, and with the Bo Horvat deal, the more I think about it, it's like, yeah, they probably signed him for too much money for too long, whichever way you could see it. He's a great player, but I think it's just a little too much for my taste. But the fact is, Lou Lamoriello doesn't really care, because he's not going to be there by the end of that contract. So
that's for sure.
At least chances are, he's really old, so he's either going to retire before it, or he'll get fired. So he doesn't really care much. He just locked up a really good player, though, for his team. But it's the Tarasenko deal that intrigues me, because, he's a fantastic player. Like you said, the Canadians don't have a Vladimir Tarasenko to give up right now, but I just can't help but think back to last year's deadline. Obviously, the market is way different, but you see Arturi Lehkonen go for basically a first round pick in Justin Barron and a second round pick on top of it. So it's going to be a wild trade deadline, and at least leading up, it won't be generally. It's not that good. It's not going to be like the NBA was. The NBA was just absolutely insane. But I don't know. What are you expecting in the weeks leading up from the Canadiens?
Well, it's gonna be really hard because we talked last year how Kent Hughes did really great, and I don't want to diminish anything, but it was easy. Everyone wanted to have Ben Sherratt, and Arturi Lehkonen was a prized forward, and the Colorado Avalanche decided to pay the price, and he was traded. But right now, the cases are very different because of the injuries. Without the injuries, Joel Edmondson could be a very valuable defenseman. But I'm asking you the question: if you're a GM right now, knowing that he has another year of contract, do you take on Joel Edmondson without being sure that his back is going to affect him? So it's really a hard question for the other GMs, and the same question could be applied to a guy like Sean Monahan. You don't want to trade for him and to see him be sidelined for a few weeks and not being sharp for the playoffs or anything. So Kent Hughes is not in a good position. Maybe could try to sell the guys and say, okay, maybe if he plays 10 games in the playoffs, that second rounder become a first rounder. But even then, it's not going to be any guarantee for the Canadians to acquire that famous first round pick that the GM wants. So it's going to be really, really hard. And Kent Hughes is going to have to sell really hard to say, you know what, my players, they're going to be healthy and they can help your team. So it's going to be hard for Kent Hughes, that's for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's really just the injuries this year. Just officially with LTIR and just regular IR, the Canadians have 9 players on that list. So it's insanity. And I make the joke every week. I made it to Stu Cowan. I'll make it to you too, because at this point it's tradition. But it's like if one more player goes down, keep your phone close to you, because they might be calling you next to come up to the team. but it's really gotten to that point. It's bad, and it's all the wrong players, right? It's like none of the players that you wanted to get injured have now gotten injured. But I don't know. I feel like you bring up a good point, because for example, a Sean Monahan, let's say, Kent Hughes constructs some crazy deal like he did in the summer with Calgary on who the hell knows what the terms of that first round pick is. But he could come up with some sort of, crazy condition with a team that, they're up against the cap, and they could throw a Sean Monahan on the LTIR, and then who knows, if he's healthy come playoff time, then you have another Nikita Kucherov situation where you're getting an acquisition, you're over the cap, but it doesn't really matter. So I feel like that could happen. Joel Edmondson, that's a tough one, because it's 2 or 3 seasons now he's had injury problems. So that's a really unfortunate one for many different reasons. Because one, I mean, it's unfortunate for the Canadians, because that would have been a nice piece to move and definitely would have had interest. But the other part is, Joel Edmondson is a player I really like. I really liked him since the Stanley Cup playoff run a couple of years ago. Whenever he was speaking to the media, he was just very intelligent and not spewing the we got to get pucks in deep kind of thing. It was always just very thoughtful responses, and he just seemed like a really good guy. So that's just why I feel bad for him.
Yeah, exactly. And Edmondson, he brings something to the table, and he won the Stanley Cup in 2019 as a top 4 defenseman, and he went to the Stanley Cup final with the Habs as a top 4 defenseman. So he has that profile of guy you want in the playoffs, on the ice, off the ice. We talked about him being maybe a captain for the Montreal Canadiens. Obviously, they decided to go with Suzuki. That was the right call, but he was considered, and he wears an A on his jersey when he's healthy. So that's a decision to take. But if a team acquires him, you don't want him to be just good in the locker room. You want him to be good
Mm.
on that ice because he has a lot of experience to offer. And that's the same thing with a guy like Sean Monahan. And we talk a lot about Colorado Avalanche, but they're very injury prone too this year. So you don't necessarily want to add another injury prone guy. So really, there's a lot of questions. Maybe you can turn to someone who's not as good as Sean Monahan when he's healthy, but if you're sure that the guy is going to be in the lineup, maybe it's a little more easy for another GM to trade in the next few weeks.
Yeah, and it's tough because it just seems like every team, the two big trades have happened. You get Vladimir Tarasenko and Bo Horvat. Like those are two massive names getting traded, but it kind of feels like every team is kind of in limbo because they don't really know what's going on with the cap. Like we know it's going up $1 million, but what's going to happen after that? No one really knows what's going to happen. So those longer term deal or the deals with term on them, with players with term, that's where it gets trickier, I find. But I find also those are really the players that are being tossed around in the rumor mills these days. It's those players like Joel Edmondson that have term. If he was healthy, a Yoel Armia, that's a name that I've heard a couple times. Everyone knows what he does come playoff time. He just turns on the Jets. Even a Jake Evans, I've heard, being his name being tossed around here and there across the different websites. But again, these guys are injured. And I mean, while they don't relatively have that much cap, they don't take up too much cap, but it's tough because, nobody knows what's going to happen with this cap. You're going to assume it's going to go up, especially with the TV deals. Well, the Canadian TV deal is up a couple of years, but I don't know. I'm excited to see because it feels like at this point last year, a lot more trades were happening. So I feel like they're going to get, at least from an entertainment standpoint for the fans, it's going to get concentrated closer and closer towards that deadline day.
Yeah, I want to see some. We're all gonna take off on that day to concentrate on that and,
Oh yeah.
to work. But we're not off of job, but off of everything else to make sure to concentrate on the trade deadline. We need some trades for the fate of the NHL. We need to have a good day. And yeah, the salary cap is a very good point because it is really really important. And I have the feeling, Matt, that sometimes people forget how much the NHL relies on that salary cap. It's not the same situation as a few years ago. We see a
Mm.
lot of transaction on that way. I mean, Marc-André Fleury who won the Vizina, was traded for nothing because they gave all of his salary, and a few months later he was traded for a conditional first pick because the Blackhawks decided to retain half of his salary. That's a proof for me that when you retain salary, when you facilitate a trade, it can be way much easier. And that's why I think that a big transaction for Josh Anderson could be very hard to pull off for Kent Hughes during a season because he has a very imposing contract, 5.5 for the next
Mm.
4+ years. It's really, really huge. And I'm not sure if a team can add that kind of contract at the trade deadline. I know there is salary going the other way, but Kent Hughes is not going to retain salary on that one because he don't want to have that salary retained for 4 more years. If he is traded, I think it's going to be during the off season. But as for the next few weeks, how do you make that trade? I'm not sure if there's a way, sincerely.
Yeah, you mentioned you were on Cap Friendly. I'm on Cap Friendly right now, and boy, it's tough sledding. I mean, if you're a playoff team, there's not many playoff teams that are, so far out of the cap rate space because it's like the gap is just so large. The playoff team with the most amount of projected cap space right now is the Winnipeg Jets, and they got just about $2 million in change in cap space. So you're right. I mean, retaining cap, I mean, on Josh Anderson, that would be tough. I agree with you. I don't think Kent Hughes would go for that. But he's an interesting player because, again, he's one of those guys. He's so frustrating because you know what he can be. It's kind of like I see a parallel. Now, I'm going to get shredded in the comments for this, and I really don't care because I've been shredded before, and it's going to happen again. But I'm going to draw a parallel between Josh Anderson and Jonathan Drouin. It's not as close as, it's not just like, oh my God, I'm comparing both of them. I'm comparing the situation because, we all know the talent level that Jonathan Drouin has. He wasn't a third overall pick for no reason. Now, it just didn't happen for him, and it happens, whatever, stuff happens. We're not going to harp on it. It's kind of the same thing with Josh Anderson because we know what he's capable of. He was brought in. He's like this freak of nature, huge guy, can skate like the wind, but just in my opinion, it has not worked out the way that Marc Bergevin had envisioned. And I'm not going to knock him on that move because it was a great move at the time. Everyone loved it. And at a certain point, it's on the player. So it hasn't worked out the way it has. But is he too old at this point for a GM to say, we can make that work?
Here's the thing with Josh Anderson. Josh Anderson in the regular season and Josh Anderson in the playoff, it's a complete different animal because if you just go on the hockey DB, you look at my statement and you say, well, it's not really true. But when you see actually him play and you see the way he's playing completely different and the opponents are really scared of him. I remember in 2019, you remember when the Blue Jackets swept the Lightning before they went on for their a few cups. Josh Anderson was on that Columbus roster, and in Tampa Bay, they said we had absolutely no answer against him. And I think if you look at the score sheet, I think he has 1 assist in 4 games, but his impact was bigger than that. So maybe a playoff team can say, okay, we can take a chance. But you said it, he's going to be older and maybe he's going to slow down in the next few years. You don't know how a guy who relies so much on his speed is going to look like at 31, 32, or 33 years old. So in the point of view of the Montreal Canadiens, who are not going to make the playoffs in the next few years, or at least they're not wishing to win the Stanley Cups, maybe it's fair to say, okay, we're going to trade him, but the team who's going to acquire him is going to say, yeah, it's perfect to have him in 23, 24, 25, but how is he going to look in 26 and 27? That's the question lingering right now. And if the salary cap doesn't go up as much as they want, he can become at 5.5 maybe heavier than you want on your salary cap.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm gonna steal this from one of our viewers or listeners. He's on YouTube. This is the perfect comparison. This is from Crypto Bunny. I compare Anderson to Rene Bourque. I love it. Rene Bourque was not he wasn't the best performer. I mean, people hated him here, but come playoff time, I mean, I remember he was one of my best memories as a kid growing up as a Montreal Canadiens fan. I went to a game where it was the Rangers against the Canadiens. It was that famous series where Price went down, and I was at the game where I think the Canadiens won 7-4 or something, and Josh Anderson, Rene Bourque had a hat trick in that game. That playoff run, he was insane. He had like 13 goals or something like that. So really like that from Crypto Bunny. Thank you for the comment. Yeah. But you're right. It's he gets older, but it's again, it goes back to like the Lou Lamoriello thing. Is like a GM could take a chance on this because with 5 years on his contract, that GM could probably say, you know what, I saw what he did against Tampa Bay, like you said. And he's a good player. I like we like the frame, we like the size, speed, skill, all of that together, physicality. I'm probably not going to be here at the end of his contract. So like, why not take a chance? Let's give up an asset and, throw the Hail Mary. And if it works, it works, because man, that is like the potential is there. And I feel like maybe because we're in Montreal and we hyper focus on these players so much here in the bubble, I don't know. From the outside, all the signs point to this is a good risk to take. The cap hit, whatever, it's fine. That you can manage. It's more so the 5 years left that would concern me.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe, but as you said, maybe a GM who wants to take a chance right now and maybe doesn't care as much on the future as he should. I may think about the Calgary Flames, they really seem to do right now moves as we saw last summer. They have an history trade with Kent Hughes, obviously with the Tyler Toffoli trade. So maybe a team like that, maybe the Jets, if something happens, may trade for him. That being said, let's remember that he has a modified no trade clause. He can refuse a trade to 8 teams. Maybe Winnipeg is on that list. I don't know because I haven't seen his list,
Yeah.
obviously, but we can assume that Winnipeg is on that list because I guess it's on many players' list. But there's a lot of factors to consider considering Josh Anderson, and that's why I'm saying maybe it's gonna be really hard to trade him right now. And Kent Hughes doesn't absolutely want to trade Josh Anderson. If he receives an offer big enough to trade him, is going to do it. But how can you build a bidding war if so many teams don't have the luxury during the season to trade for him? So that's why I think don't hold your breath. I think if it has to happen,
Mhm.
it's going to happen during the summer because you have more space on the cap during the summer. You can create a bidding war. You can talk to the players. You can take your time. Right now, everybody is stressed about everything. I'm not sure the timing is the best, even though we just said, he's a playoffs guy and the playoffs are coming. So I understand that part of the deal, but during the summer, that's when I'm looking for maybe a Josh Anderson trade.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you there. It's something to look for towards the summer. Also, just a quick note for our viewers that are paying close attention to the tank race. There is a massive game going on right now between the Arizona Coyotes and Chicago Blackhawks, currently tied 2-2 in the second intermission. Hopefully, if you're a Canadiens fan, you see a 3-point, you see that game go to overtime with the winner going either way. But back to potential trade chips. One player who is healthy, and we spoke about it last week on the Sick Podcast with Mo Khan and Scott Matla when we did a round table, was Mike Hoffman. Now, Mike Hoffman gets a lot of hate in this city, and I find a lot of it is because as much as people know what he was brought in for, he's not doing it. He hasn't been scoring the goals lately. He's been putting in a couple this year, but as of late, but consistently with his time with the Canadiens, he hasn't done it. And he was here to bring in to help the power play. Didn't do it because, well, the Canadiens don't have a quarterback to man that power play anyways. But lately, I've really liked Mike Hoffman's game. I mean, I find when he's playing up in the lineup, he's been very much involved in the game, at least in the offensive zone. He looks like he's, taking good shots, and he's putting the puck in the back of the net a couple times. He looks good. Is it impossible that a team will look at this? They're struggling a bit on the power play. A team will look at that player and say, okay, he can still play. All we're asking him to do is shoot the puck. We have the team around him to insulate him. And for him to do that, is it impossible that a team looks at him and might want to take a go at him for the before the trade deadline?
It's not impossible, but I do not think it's really a real possibility because of that next year in the contract. If we were 12 in 12 months in 2024 and his contract was about to expire, I would say, yeah, as a rental, a team is going to take a chance on 50% of his contract or something in the conditions that you said, that you don't have to be the guy that generates offense. You just have to be the guy who shoots. Um, Maybe if he has a really, really good run in the next 10 games before the trade deadline,
Yeah.
if he has the chance to play on the power play because Cole Caulfield is not there on his spot, that may help him a little bit. And if he scores a few goals, maybe a GM is going to say, you know what, maybe I'm going to give it a call and see if there's a fit right there. But I won't hold my breath on that one. I'm pretty sure that he's going to stay. And if he has to be traded, it's not going to be now. It's not going to be this summer. I think sometimes is going to have to pass by, and maybe towards the next deadline, there could be a possibility to trade. But as of right now, I don't think so.
Yeah, it's that's one where I think it's 50-50, right? Because it's just one more year kind of thing.
Mhm.
So I don't see it as totally impossible. Like you said, it's not totally impossible. I'm not holding my breath, but I think that's one that it could be like a surprise move that kind of no one was expecting. And, I already would know the reaction if Kent Hughes managed to trade him, which would be utter joy on Twitter because for whatever reason, people hate him. But let's not forget, he's not the reason why this team is bad. No. So I just feel like he gets a little too much hate for my taste, especially when people start ripping him, for not back checking. Well, it's said from day one, if you're expecting Mike Hoffman to back check, you haven't been watching hockey for too long. All right, Charles, this 30 minutes has flown by. I got to ask you before I let you go, are you watching the Super Bowl tomorrow? On Sunday, rather?
Yes, I will watch the Super Bowl. And I don't watch a lot of NFL. I try to watch it towards the season, but the Super Bowl is something else. You have to gather up with some friends and everything. You eat wings or whatever, and I'm gonna have a good time on Sunday night. That's for sure.
Okay, so I gotta ask, who do you have winning the game?
What I love about sports is seeing a guy succeeding so many times, and I want to see dynasty. And a guy like Patrick Mahomes has the potential to do so. And of course, in Philadelphia, maybe there's something that could be built off too. But Patrick Mahomes already has won. It's gonna be his third Super Bowl. He can win his second. I'm rooting for that. I want to see greatness. I want to see at some point someone winning 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm not gonna say 7 because I think it's gonna be pretty hard to catch up on Tom Brady. But Patrick Mahomes has that potential to be the next guy, and I want to do so, and I think he has the ability to do so. So I'm gonna say Patrick Mahomes.
So you're gonna take the Chiefs, okay? And what's you said wings are what you're gonna be eating? What's the sauce of choice? This is very important to me.
You know what? I'm a buffalo guy. I like the buffalo sauce. I think it's gonna be a great fit on that one. So, but it's wings, right? So if you offer me whatever the sauce it's gonna be, I'm gonna take those wings.
All right. I love it. All right. Well, Charles, enjoy the 2 games this weekend. The Canadiens are playing tomorrow at the Bell Center against the New York Islanders and Bo Horvat, and then on Sunday against Connor McDavid and those Edmonton Oilers. Then we got the big game at night. So enjoy this weekend of sports.
All right. Thank you, man. You too.
Thank you, Charles. So that was Charles. Now it's time to talk about Super Bowl 57. Very, very excited for this game. It's very bittersweet because for 2 reasons. One, it's the best game or the best day of the year. It's the Super Bowl. So much fun. 90% of North America will be watching this game. I pulled that number out of my rear end, so don't quote me on that. But you know what I mean. It's just a good time for all. And my favorite part of the Super Bowl, more than anything, the reason why. Well, before I get to that, the reason why I call it bittersweet is because 1, it's the best game of the year, or the game I'm looking forward to the most out of the year. However, it is the mark of the beginning of the NFL offseason. So we go about, 6 or 7 months with no football, which is just a travesty, or NFL football, I should say, which is just a travesty. All right. That's my favorite part, more than the food itself, but around the game are the betting props. And we had to bring him back. He got a 1-week ban because he took the Buffalo Bills over my Cincinnati Bengals. Well, he made the right choice last week. I've been following along on social media. He took the Chiefs over the Bengals, or 2 weeks ago, rather, took the Chiefs over the Bengals. He is Cash from Run My Bets. Cash, how we doing?
What's happening, brother? Excited to be on, man. Excited for this weekend. It's that time of year.
Yeah, I've been following along on your Instagram page. I know you got some big plays for this weekend.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, right off the bat, just going to throw it at you. Is there a reason of significance for the Baltimore Ravens hat?
Look, I don't have a Chiefs hat, and
gotcha.
I look. It signifies something. It's the end of the season. Futures come out right away, right after the end of the Super Bowl. Guys, I'm all over the Ravens for next year. I'm going to be betting futures immediately. I'm going to take my Super Bowl winnings, and I'm going to be putting roughly 5-10% of them on the Ravens. Watch out for the Ravens next year, guys. These playoffs taught me so much, and I really believe the Ravens have a good chance to win the Super Bowl next year.
So I'm glad you brought up futures because I thought about it and I was like, oh, we'll see what Cash has to say. You brought it up right away. So we're going to talk about that after we talk about the big game. So let's just go right off the bat. Kansas City against Philadelphia. Philadelphia considered the home team, but it's a neutral field, so whatever. Philly are 1.5 point favorites. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but this line basically if I remember correctly, it opened up as Philly as 2.5 point favorites, and then it dropped to 1.5, and it didn't move. Or am I wrong on that?
Yeah. So you're right about some of it, but the line opened initially Kansas City -2.5. It was immediately bet down to Kansas City -1, and then it was bet down to a pick. And then when it started coming on global marketplaces, the first number that most people saw was Philly -2. Philly -1.5, Philly -2, but it did open in Kansas City's favor. Kansas City did open a 2.5 point favorite. It held steady at Philly -2.5, and then it hit 2, and then later on in the week it went to 1.5, and it's been sitting there ever since.
So I gotta ask, because it just seems like from watching, the first takes, the first things first, the all the sports shows, the big high profile sports shows, it just seems to me like the entire world, at least from the so-called experts on TV that are paid to give their opinion, are on the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm at a loss for words. I would think it's like a 50-50 split here. We're talking the Kansas City Chiefs, but I don't know. Why do you think that is? Why is the entire, at least mainstream media world all over the Eagles?
Yeah, you're right, and it's I don't even think it's the mainstream media. I think it's everybody in general. Like if you go outside and ask 10 people, 6 of them are going to say the Eagles, and they're not crazy for that. The Eagles are a much better team. They're better literally on every single position of the ball except for quarterback. They have the better offensive line, the better defensive line. They have the better secondary. They have the better receiving unit. They have the better running backs. Their tight end group is probably deeper as well. And I know that Travis Kelce's on the Chiefs, but just going to show you, like, the Eagles are a much superior team to the Chiefs. They're way better than the Chiefs at every area except for the most important area in all of sports.
Well, so I could probably, if you weren't on when it was before the Bengals Chiefs game.
Yeah.
And I could probably make the argument that the Bengals, I could definitely make the argument that the Bengals have the better receiving core.
Yeah.
The Bengals had the better running backs.
Yeah.
The Bengals, they didn't have the better tight end, but overall, I think you would take the weapons of the Bengals over
100%.
the weapons of the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Would take the defensive backs of the Bengals over the defensive backs of the Chiefs.
Yeah.
You would take, the defensive line, even though they have Chris Jones. It's a one-man show, basically.
Yeah, I lean Bengals there. I think it's a bit of a wash, but I think the Bengals probably have a little bit better line.
Yeah, so it's just, to me, I find for a number 1 seed, I understand that on paper, the players and the group, the personnel is not as good.
Yeah.
But to me, it's just crazy that nobody has just said, what are we doing here? This is Patrick Mahomes as an underdog. What are we doing here? Why are we not jumping all over this?
Yeah, well, I'm jumping all over that, man. That's
me too. Me too. I'm right there. Side. I'm right there.
And I set it up. I said the Eagles are the better team, and I'll hold myself to that. The Eagles are much better. But listen, this is the type of game, this is the type of position, type of situation where in 5 years from now, if Patrick Mahomes has 3 or 4 rings, you're going to tell yourself, you're going to be like, back the 2022 Super Bowl, he was an underdog. You could have taken him at plus money. I don't know how many times you're going to be able to say that in your lifetime. He's got experience. He's been there. I like the Chiefs, man. I like Patrick Mahomes. One thing that's super underrated about this Chiefs team is the offensive line. The Eagles have a great offensive line. They probably have a better O-line, but this Chiefs O-line is what moves them. It's what held them in against against the Bengals, man. They held up. The Bengals O-line didn't hang up. And see, that's the thing that everyone was talking about. Everyone was saying, oh, the Bills are going to destroy the Bengals offensive line. Well, number one, it was in snow, and the Bills have a terrible defensive line. They couldn't get any pressure. I knew that wasn't going to be the case. You have the Clark and you have Chris Jones there in the middle creating havoc. And it's just caused so much weight and it's caused so much opinion to stir. You know, you look at the Eagles and their record with Hurts. It's so misleading, man. If anyone who watched that game with 2 eyes realizes that the Eagles, they haven't beaten anybody all year. Their best win all year.
It drives me crazy.
Like, if someone asked me their best win, I would tell you it's probably the Tennessee Titans at home. And those Tennessee Titans, they proceeded to lose, I think, 7 games in a row. Like that is their marquee win. They beat the Cowboys with Cooper Rush, and they beat Josh Johnson at quarterback for the 49ers. And I see a lot of Eagles fans, a lot of Eagles supporters, a lot of Eagle backers. Oh, we dropped 31 on the best defense in the NFL. You scored 31 points, but you guys got 2 turnovers. And another thing is you guys only had 260 yards to show for it. Like that's nothing. If you average 260 yards a game in the NFL, you might get 14 points with that. The same thing's not going to happen this game. They literally do not have one legitimate win on their record. I don't see a world where Kansas City loses this game. They can win from behind. They can win from ahead. Give me the Chiefs, man. I think the Chiefs are the better team. I think they're the better quarterback. They have the better coach. I like the Chiefs in blowout fashion. I like them in a double-digit win. I really do. Jalen Hurts looked awful against the 49ers. And, so I'm going long here, but you said you felt bittersweet. And I thought you said it was bittersweet because you're watching the Super Bowl and your Bengals aren't in it. And I had huge tickets. I had massive leverage on the 49ers. And trust me, man, I would have loved to see the Niners in the Super Bowl. But
I was thinking back. Sorry to cut you off, but I was just I'm gonna let you continue. But I was thinking back to when the 49ers lost that game because I remember you told me the week prior, man, I'm just hoping the 49ers make the Super Bowl. I don't even need them to win it. I just want them to make it there. Yeah, I felt for you that day.
Just because when you have so much leverage on the future, right? If they're a 1-point favorite or a 1-point underdog, you can hedge off your position easily, and it guarantees you a profit. And the same thing happened this year. It's unfortunate, but that's what happens. They lost their quarterback, their 3rd-string quarterback, and then you have a 4th-stringer out there. And Hurts looked awful, man. He looked terrible. He couldn't throw the ball. He was missing wide open shots. Every pass that he threw was a check down. They don't look right. Something is off with them. Just because they beat the Giants as a huge favorite and they beat Christian McCaffrey taking snaps in the backfield, watch out, guys. A lot of people like the Eagles. Be careful with this, man. Patrick Mahomes is only going to get healthier. If he was healthy, 100% healthy, they would be 2.5-point favorite. They're not. But
I completely agree. Well, that's the thing. And so there's a couple things. First thing, I'm really happy you brought up the Chiefs offensive line because we're both in agreement that the Eagles have the better offensive line. But that's not to say that the Chiefs have a bad one. I watched them shut down Sam Hubbard, shut down DJ Reader, and shut down Trey Hendrickson. That is just insane. One of them will get loose in a game, generally speaking. And it was nothing. And, the Bengals, they did what they wanted to do. They wanted to keep Mahomes in the pocket. They did that. Yeah. But they just couldn't get home. And that line was damn impressive to me against the Bengals. The next thing that you said that piqued my interest was that Jalen Hurts hasn't looked right. And I completely agree with you. It's insane to me because, the thing is when Eagles fans say, and listen, one of my best friends is an Eagles fan. And if you're listening right now or going to listen later, I'm sorry in advance for what I'm about to say.
He's not going to like this.
Yeah, well, he's not going to like it. But the truth is I've been a Bengals fan. I've seen some really good, some really shitty Bengals teams in my day. And the biggest thing was they've always had a very solid defense. Yeah. But I'm sorry, your defense could be the best freaking defense in the world. If you're on the field, you're on the field for 75% of the game, you're gonna get scored on. That's just the law of physics. It's gonna happen. So that's why they hung 31 on the 49ers. Yeah. So
and look, I'm gonna cut you off here for a second because I feel like it's really important to say a lot of people look at the generic metrics they average this many points per game. The sharp guys, the professionals that really do this full time, they don't look at the score. They don't look at how many points a team put up. You look at the serious metrics like yards per play, total yards in the game. The Eagles were averaging less yards per play than the 49ers were without a quarterback. That's disgusting. It's borderline impossible. It makes absolutely no sense. They got 260 total yards for the game. They had about of an atrocious of a performance as you could have, yet they won the game by 24 points. It's so misleading. And look what it did to the market too. The market opened up Kansas City 2.5, and right away the number goes to Eagles minus 2.5. People are reading the stat sheet wrong. People aren't looking at really what's important. Yards per play, points per play added. It's extremely important. These advanced metrics that people don't know about, they actually they're way better at dictating the outcome of a game than the actual score. They turned the ball over. They got turnovers. They got a million flags after San Francisco tied it up. This Eagle team is extremely overrated. They're a huge trap. I think Vegas is going to cash out this week. I really believe that.
Yeah, I'm there with you. And like you said, that's a third reason why it's bittersweet is because my Bengals aren't in it. But the truth is I will be cheering for the Eagles as a fan of the game because they beat the Chiefs beat the crap out of my Bengals.
But you're putting your money on the Chiefs.
Exactly, because it's the smart, intelligent thing to do.
Yeah.
So with that, we're both on the Chiefs. So let's move on to some other things on the game. So the over under is set at 51.
Yeah.
I don't know. That seems kind of high to me. You got two injured quarterbacks. One I would say is more significant to the position than the other. That being Jalen Shoulder.
Yeah.
Both I've heard on many different networks that both these teams' game plan is going to be to pound the rock.
Yeah.
So the 51 points comes from where?
Yeah, it's really tough. It's funny you say that because everyone looks at the Eagles and identifies them as a running team. They're not actually a running team. They're a pass first team. The only reason they have such an efficient run game and such like an all-time run game is because they're ahead in so many of these games. They have such big leads in these games. These run metrics, these running yards that they have, they're so exaggerated. Look at the Giants game. They were ahead in that game by 20 points in the first quarter. Look at the Niners. The game was over at halftime, right? They're piling up so many yards running the ball. It's really misleading. So when people say like, oh, I'm going to bet the under because the Eagles are going to run the ball and they're going to deflate the ball and they're going to have all kinds of time with it, I'm not really buying that. And here's the truth. I really like the under in Super Bowls. I automatically bet it almost every single year. I have yet to watch a Super Bowl where the under doesn't win. That's the truth about it. I have yet to bet on a Super Bowl where the under doesn't cash. And I'm going to take the over in this game. I think everybody's got it wrong. I think we got two pass-heavy teams. Another thing, too. When I first looked at it, I was like, oh, Super Bowl under. The deeper you dig into the stats, the more you look into it, I think there's a liability in this Eagles secondary that hasn't been exposed yet. Look at the quarterbacks that these guys have played. They haven't played anybody. This Eagles team didn't even when they played against Dak Prescott, the Cowboys were averaging over 6.5 yards per play. They dropped 40 on them. That's the only competent QB that they've placed. And Dak Prescott, in my eyes, isn't even an elite quarterback. Like, what's going to happen when Mahomes gets a hold of this guy? Look at Brandon Ayuk's quotes. He said what we were going to do to these guys through the air was going to be unparalleled, right? And he said he would take everything that he owned and go put it on the Chiefs because he thinks the Chiefs are going to tear through them with an aerial attack. Look at what Green Bay did to them. Green Bay put up 35 on them with Jordan Love coming in for the later half of that game. Like, it's so misleading going into the Super Bowl. And everyone's saying Philly has such a great defense. Do they actually? Who have they beaten? Who have they stopped through the air? What have they done to really prove that to you? And the answer is nobody. They have nobody. They have no stops. They have no stops against elite offenses. To me, it's blasphemous. It's insane. Give me the over 50.5. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think a lot of people overvalue this Eagles defense. They got a great pass rush. I'll give them that. Their pass rush.
Yeah, but that's where I was leading to is, a bad defense could be very well disguised by a very good pass rush.
Their pass rush is elite. I'm going to give them that. I'm not going to argue that. Their linebacker plays below average, and their secondary plays look great, but super misleading, guys. I'm telling you. I think they're going to get lit up. I wouldn't be surprised if Kansas City drops 28 plus on them.
So let's get into some of the props. I have a lot of a lot of the line numbers out. So we'll start here because I was kind of on this, but I'm interested to get your take after hearing what you had to say. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't, when I see a high number of passing yards, like 293 for Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
I get a little nervous. So I look at the value at, a lower number, like on Jalen Hurts, 240. And, again, injured shoulder. He hasn't looked very good. I was leaning under, but you just said it's going to be a pass heavy game. So where are you leaning on Jalen Hurts over or under 240 passing yards?
I have, if I had a free play on it, I would take under. I don't see him being able to throw over 250 with that arm. Mahomes, man, the number opened up 278. It's now 296. The value's on the under, but I'm taking the over, and it's going to be a whale play sent to my clients. I'm going to want everybody unloading on the over for Patrick Mahomes passing yards. This is the Super Bowl, man. Regardless of whatever he's going through right now, I really believe they're going to be throwing on first down, throwing on second down, throwing on third down. Look, they just beat the Bengals, and they had 17 rushes for 36 yards. They have no run game, and he's chewed them up on half a leg. Now he's probably got 75% of his leg back. I think he's going to chew them up. And here's the thing. If they're in the regular season, you got to worry about that prop. Patrick Mahomes passing yards prop, you got a real issue. If they're playing the Raiders on Sunday at 4:00 in the evening and they're up 21-3 in the third quarter with 6 minutes left, they're not airing that thing out anymore. You might not even find him in the game in the fourth quarter. Guys, he's going to be throwing first down, second down, third down. He's going to have 350 passing yards this game. And here's the thing that's amazing with this prop. It's not conditional on whether they win or they lose. Because if they're winning, I believe he still continues to throw the ball. If they're losing, he throws the ball even more. I think he gets over 300 yards easily. And I think the bookies are going to take a beating on that one specific prop.
Yeah, it strikes me as a 325 kind of game for Patrick Mahomes.
It's square. It's winning, though. It's a square. It's as square as it gets. But they get pounded on that prop every year, and it's going to happen again.
Yeah, so I like that one. I'm happy you said if you had a free play, you'd take the under on Jalen Hurts because I was gonna, like I said, I was leaning under, but after what
Yeah.
you said there, it got me a little nervous. So let's talk. So I guess you would say that Isaiah, a big play that. Well, it's not really a big play, but a play that a friend ran by me was that he said to me, Isaiah Pacheco, 40, well, at the time he got it at 49 and a half rushing yards. He took the over. Now I saw it. I just checked right before we went on live. It was at 47 and a half.
Yeah.
That is a number I am quite tempted to take because we've seen in the past, like to protect Patrick Mahomes, you have to establish the run. Otherwise, I don't care how good that Chiefs line is.
Yeah.
That defensive line of the Eagles will eat. So I'm really liking the 47, over 47 and a half, just based off the fact that we've seen earlier in the season that the Eagles run D has struggled at times.
Yeah.
And they're gonna have, just from the sheer volume that Pacheco is gonna get, because they're gonna want to protect Patrick Mahomes at a certain point.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. I can't do it. I can't get behind it just because of what he did last week. He was terrible. Mm-hmm. And the Bengals don't have a great run defense. Like they don't. Like it's average, a little bit below average. They have a great pass rush, but stopping the run isn't one of the Bengals' fortes. And we saw what happened to Pacheco. This guy, Pacheco and McKinnon combined for 36 yards on 18 carries. The run game was non-existent, and it shows you how good Patrick Mahomes is and how valuable he is. Another thing, because you're talking about Pacheco rushing, right?
Yes, just rushing.
Yeah.
Sure, rushing.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire got activated off the IR. He's their running back number one. The Pacheco prop really scares me, man. Honest to God, I believe I'm gonna have his under. I'm gonna have all their unders on my card. Light sprinkles, nothing crazy, but I'm gonna be betting the running back props under. I really believe that.
So Jalen Hurts is at 50 and a half. That's just a stay away for me. It's a high number. It's a high number for a game.
I think he can get there, man. I would lean towards the over, and I'd lean towards the over on Mahomes rushing yards as well. They're both injured, but this is the game of the century for them, right? They're both going to be playing, doing whatever it takes to get there. If it was last week or even in the regular season, I would have said no, stay away. But I think Jalen Hurts over 15.5 rushing is a decent bet.
So let's move to receiving yards before we get to receptions, because I know what your rule of thumb is when it's the Chiefs playoff game on receptions.
Yeah.
But let's talk receiving yards first. Now, this is something my friend fed to me. Interesting, because I think it's the Chiefs against number one wide receivers. They're, I think, 31st ranked in the NFL against number one wide receivers. Well, here's the tough part. Who's the number one wide receiver now? Because 1 week it seems to be Devontae Smith. The other week it seems to be A.J. Brown. Devontae Smith's receiving yards are at 63.5, and A.J. Brown's are at 72.5.
Yeah, I think A.J. Brown's their number one receiver, and A.J. Brown has a history of chalking these guys up, man. The Titans beat the Chiefs almost every time they played them with A.J. Brown. I think A.J. Brown's the number one option, but Devontae Smith is really good. He's really good at those quick throws, those quick seam routes where he gets 6 yards and turns it into 11 after contact. A.J. Brown, though, you can win that prop in one shot. The one thing that worries me, though, is Hurts, man. He's off. He missed him last week. He missed him on a wide open touchdown. The game was already over at that point pretty much, but he still missed him. I'd take A.J. Brown. See, I honest to God, I don't think I'd take either of those props, to be honest. I would leave that. I don't have faith in either of them. If I had to take one, I'd take A.J. Brown.
So it's funny you mentioned that him missing A.J. Brown, because a friend of mine had texted me, you want a lock? Because at that point I had no read on the Eagles 49ers game. Obviously, as a Bengals fan, I was hyper focused on the Bengals Chiefs.
Yeah.
So I had no idea how that game would go. He goes, you want a lock?
Yeah,
take A.J. Brown over 4.5 catches.
Yeah.
The guy had 4 freaking catches on one drive.
Yeah.
And Jalen Hurts missed him on the touchdown. He did not get another catch again.
Yeah.
There goes that. So,
famine, man.
So what I'm interested on the other side, though, is I'm interested in the Chiefs props, because
you know what I'm doing.
We're both. I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing. Don't worry. I'm doing it with you.
Yeah.
I've
Easy
learned
money,
my
it's free
lesson.
money.
Yeah, I've learned my lesson. I'm doing it with you. But let's I just want, because Patrick Mahomes, we both believe he's going to get over 300. Well, he has to throw to some players to get there.
Yeah.
So Travis Kelce 78.5. I'm going to take that over. No problem.
Easy.
Travis Kelce's catches, by the way, I'm even
Easy.
more enticed by. I'm even more enticed by that because against the Bengals, it was 7.5. He ended up hitting it, but I was a little bit nervous. When it gets to 7.5, you have to get to 8 catches.
Yeah.
It's a lot for any player.
It's a
but
bit,
this is 6.5 now. So I feel really good about 6.5. So over, easy, done. Now here's where it gets interesting. MVS and Juju are both at 35.5. Kadarius Toney, I believe he's definitely lower than that. I don't, Kadarius Toney, the guy's, but you know what? Kadarius Toney's going to get tackled once and like shred his hamstring or something.
Yeah,
so
I had him last game, man. Dropped a 30-yard touchdown pass and ran for 10 yards and got injured. Brutal.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm interested to see. So we're both on the Kelce train.
Yeah.
If you had to bet MVS, Juju, 35.5, where would you lean there?
I'm betting Marquez Valdez-Scantling, man. He earned Mahomes' trust. That's the game of the year so far. That Bengals Chiefs game can be, if the Chiefs go on and win this game by double digits, they blow them out. That AFC Championship game is probably more prevalent than this Super Bowl would be. And I think Mahomes realized he's got a dude, like he's got a guy that he can find down there. Yeah. They had nobody. They lost 3 receivers. They were down in the depth chart. 3rd and long, Valdez-Scantling catches a crazy pass from Mahomes. That dude might have the game of his life. I'm taking a flyer on him. Super Bowl MVP. I'm taking him receptions. I'm taking him receiving yards over. Marquez Valdez-Scantling is going to be one of my bigger plays. Watch for this guy. He showed Mahomes something. Mahomes isn't going to forget it. Yeah, well, so I'm with you there, because that was one thing that I was really impressed, because I'm like, the emotion in me is like, obviously I want the Bengals to win that game. And I'm sorry for our viewers and listeners that I keep drawing back to this game, but it's natural because this is how the Chiefs got to where they got to. When Patrick Mahomes threw that pass to Valdez-Scantling into the end zone, I didn't give up at that point, but I was like, man, what a freaking rope. Like, my God, what a toss that was. That was unbelievable. Yeah. And I agree with you. That's the type of game that you want to earn a quarterback's trust. Yeah. That, it kind of seemed like he wanted to trust him all year, but he just couldn't. But he showed up in a big way, in a big game. The game of his career. Yeah, exactly. And I'm right there with you. I think that could happen again on Sunday. So let's talk catches. I guess we're both on this then. MVS over 2.5. That's easy money, easily. He's their he's their go route guy, but he catches short seams as well. That's money. That's a money prop right there. I love that. If you're watching the show, you should go bet that right now if it's at 2.5. Yeah, 2.5 is like, I saw that and I'm like, really? After last week? Yeah. Another one that intrigued me. I'm going to lay off the AJ Brown, Devontae Smith. They're both at 5.5. I'm just going to, I'm just going to not stay away from that. But another one that really intrigued me was Jerick McKinnon. And he's at 2.5. Yeah. That's a really seemingly very low, suspiciously low number for a pass catching back. Yeah. It's because they've got so many backs going, man. They have Ronald Jones, they have Clyde Edwards, they have McKinnon, they have what's the other guy's name? Pacheco. They got 4 backs, man. Like, it's tough. Like, I'm gonna stay away from all the running back props for the Chiefs, because you don't know who's going to get the tug, who's going to get the leash this game. Like, I have no idea. I think Ronald Jones is absurdly underrated. I think he should be involved in a lot more, and they disagree. I think Pacheco's good. It's tough. That running back room is extremely complicated, man. There's no clear-cut guy in there. Is Clyde Edwards-Helaire going to be their guy on Sunday, or is he going to be the third guy, or is he not even going to see a snap? It's extremely tough. Stay away. The pass-catching props, too. I'd stay away, man. I don't really have a good read, and we're gambling at the end of the day, but I'm not trying to gamble. I'm trying to bet with an edge, right? And I just don't see an edge to be had there. So let's talk about the edges to be had in the touchdown category then. Again, no surprise here. Travis Kelce leading away, -125 to catch a touchdown. I'd take it. Two or more, plus 375. I would take that, because I said to take that. I said to take that against who was it? It was against the Jaguars, and he did it. He did it in the first, however many in the first 2 drives. Yeah.
So I like that. Jalen Hurts, I always like it because it's always plus. It's always in the plus money, man. I don't know if it's a trap or not, but he's at plus 110.
I can't talk you off that.
But that's it, because they get the ball on the 1 yard line. It's basically automatic. So that's one I like. A flyer, I kind of like it, but if Jalen Hurts was healthy, I would love this, but he's not, so I'm not convinced he could hit him on a deep route. But Quez Watkins at plus 450, he seems to always hit him once a game.
Can't do it.
But because of the shoulder, I can't do it.
Yeah, I can't question you there. I get your reasoning. I can't do it.
So this one, though, is very, very interesting to me. And just quickly before we move on to some quick props, and I want to just get a couple futures out of you. I know it's late, but Patrick Mahomes plus 375 to rush one in, or to catch one. But
I'm betting that, and I'm gonna bet not heavy, but I'm gonna bet a good chunk on that bet. I think he's gonna score.
Yeah. Again, I'm there with you. It's a big game. He's a big game player. That's just
the price is absurd on that. The price is off. The price is wrong. They're accounting for Mahomes 2 weeks ago. He's going to be a lot healthier than he was. You got to bet that.
Exactly. That's the thing, because even against the Bengals, everyone was wondering how healthy is he. Well, he looked pretty freaking damn good to me.
Yeah,
even if he was 50%.
Yeah.
Now he had 2 weeks off where he's probably getting that ankle massaged, 5 hours a day.
6 hours a day, literally. Yeah.
And if needed, they will shoot that ankle up if needed.
Yeah.
So
and they didn't shoot him up last week, and that's another key thing I forgot to go over. They didn't shoot his ankle up last week, so he couldn't have been that bad in the first place.
Exactly.
But
well,
I'm glad you brought that
he
prop
was getting.
That's my favorite touchdown scorer prop, 100%.
All right, so we got that out of the way. Let's just talk about the fun props here, because it's being offered somewhere, so someone's going to bet it. I don't know because I'm sure at your Super Bowl gatherings, you do the prop sheet. You do the prop sheet. You do all that jazz. Okay, this is always my favorite one because I always get it right. The Gatorade color. What are you running with this year?
It's got to be yellow. There's some information that came out, though. If the Eagles win the Super Bowl, it's going to be yellow. And if the Kansas City Chiefs win, it's going to be either orange or yellow. So I think that bet's actually been taken down in a lot of the marketplaces because it was leaked that it was most likely going to be yellow. So I'd have to take yellow. If you can get yellow at a plus price, take it.
Yeah, and yellow is, just as a side note, just the best flavor of Gatorade.
It is the best flavor, man.
That's just a fact. That's just a fact.
Yeah, 100%.
There you go. That's just a fact. National anthem. I think it was at 121.5 seconds. I think it's Chris Stapleton. I mean, I always just take the over on the national anthem. I mean, this is.
He holds his notes a long time, and apparently, this one's supposedly supposed to go over, but the price is absurd. You're laying minus 300, I think, for that. If you're looking to have some fun, bet the under. Get a plus 300 price. That's my opinion on it.
There you go. And the first Rihanna song. I'm not a Rihanna fan. I don't know if you are. So I don't know what's on the docket. I'm just hoping to hear a couple of the bangers. But what's the sharp play on the first song?
Yeah, so this is again where sharp money came. I guess some information leaked because it was Please Don't Stop the Music was the odds-on favorite across all sports books. The market closed for about 2 hours today and reopened up with Bitch Better Have My Money at minus 200, and it opened up globally across all marketplaces. So I'm assuming that's what she's going to open up with. It's similar to the draft. Paulo Banchero went number 1 overall in the NBA this year, and out of nowhere he was 10-1, and then hours leading up to the draft, he went from 10-1 to 6-1 to 2-1 to all of a sudden minus 350 to 1, minus 350. And it's so that sort of thing. I think that's the song she's gonna come out with first.
So there's that, and this is my favorite one. I know now that I learned what it is. Yeah, it just sounded really weird, but will there be an octopus in the game? Now, for those who don't know, an octopus is when a player catches a touchdown, the team goes for 2, and then that same player catches the 2-point conversion.
What price do you get that at?
I think just you can't bet on a player to get one, but I believe, but it's just a yes or no, and I think it's at plus 1,600 is what I saw it at.
Yeah, see, here's the thing. Like, there's so much value on the nose on these because the books know that the public money is going to come in and pound the yeses at
Yeah.
plus 1,300, the safeties, all that stuff. The wise guys are placing large bets on the nose, and they'll lay 1,200, 1,300, 1,400 because they know they're getting an extra bang for their buck on these. Like, if you're betting yes, you're paying a premium. I'd probably bet no, but you got to be a pretty high volume better to make it worth your buck.
Yeah, there you go. So, yeah, there's nothing, you know what? There's nothing. I don't know if it brings me more joy or sorrow when I see, like on, those like Barstool bet slips or whatever,
Yeah.
Bleacher Report betting, when I see like when I saw during the wild card round, someone laid, I think, like $1.5 million on the Chargers at halftime to win 50K, and there goes $1.5 million after. So, yeah, that you got to be a really big time better. As you say. Okay, let's talk a little future. Let's talk MVP for a second, because Patrick Mahomes just won his second MVP. I don't think, like, the NFL is a weird thing. They're kind of like the NBA, where they like to get to the guy over and over and over and over and over again. So I don't think he'll probably be the odds-on favorite, if not Jalen Hurts. That could mean, at least in my opinion, because this might, call me a homer if you want, but I think there could be some good value on Joe Burrow heading into next season. I don't know what it's going to open at, but I kind of like that bet because he was in the talks, and who knows what would have happened if that Bills-Bengals game would have got played. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's a good value play. It's not like it's going to happen, but it's a good value play.
I can't talk you off that. I mean, all the star quarterbacks, all the elite quarterbacks, Burrow, Herbert, Mahomes, Rodgers, used to be Brady, like those guys will always be in some form of contention for the award, right? So I can't talk you off of that. He'll be motivated as well. The O-line has been together for a year now. They'll be healthy next year. I could see it happening. Why not?
And so we'll talk about your hat, because you said it's a future for next season. Yeah. It pains me to say it, but like, I really agree with you. I think there's going to be really good value on the Ravens, and, forget about the Lamar Jackson thing for a second, but just that defense was one of the most impressive things I've ever seen.
They might have been better than San Francisco's defense. Like, with what they did to the Bengals, being able to hold them like that, it was they were going to win that game with Tyler Huntley. Sam Hubbard touchdown. If the Ravens would have scored that touchdown like they should have, if they had a competent coordinator, the game was over. I don't see the Bengals scoring a touchdown and winning the game after that. I just don't see it. And it makes you question, if the Ravens would have went and played the Bills, I would have been on the Bills. I would have taken the Bills, but I don't think the Bills would have won that game. The Ravens defense showed me something. They're elite. They're getting their quarterback this year. They're getting him back. Watch out for them, man. As long as he signs that contract and he stays with them, that team, and you're going to get even better price on them, because they're not sure he's going to sign that contract, but they're not going to let him go. They'll franchise tag him or whatever. Take the Ravens. Yeah. Matt, talking about bets real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because people ask me all the time, "Oh, do you even bet these games?" Of course I bet these games, guys. This is my livelihood. This is what I do for a living. I sent Sammy my Super Bowl bet slip. I talked the Chiefs up quite a bit. That's my bet slip. I got $10,000 going on the Chiefs for 20,000. So I'm going to be a happy camper on Sunday, or I'm going to be, I might not be the happiest guy out there. But I get a lot of people. "Oh, do you bet these games? You recommend me to bet them?" The guys, that's $10,000. That's real money. I'm not cashing that bet out. That's going to be up on Sunday. Check my Instagram, check my Twitter. You'll find out if I won. Well, you'll know if I won or not, because you're going to be watching the game. I'm on the Chiefs. I'm backing it with my own money, a lot of my own money, and I don't recommend you guys make a bet that size. But I do recommend you make a bet on the Chiefs.
Yeah, I will endorse that recommendation. Just lastly, just quickly, because we talked a lot about player props. Do you have advice, for guys like, guys like me, where, like, betting units is all relative, right? Like, a big bet for me is, I would never, unless I built up the bankroll a little bit, generally speaking, if I'm starting off with $200 in my account, as I do every season, I'm not going to be throwing $100 on a 6-way parlay. So, like, what to you is, like, a safe, but worthwhile parlay to be hitting with all those props we talked about?
Like, you're asking me how much you would recommend putting on a parlay, like, or you're asking me for the parlay itself?
So for example, if I wanted to put, let's talk Kansas City to win the game.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes over 293.5.
Yeah.
And, we'll take Travis Kelce, just anytime touchdown score. So that'll just off the dome, that'll probably pay
plus 500, plus 550.
Yeah, plus 500, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
On a bet like that, if you're really, what's the unit you're looking for over on a bet like that? That's, you need three things to happen.
Yeah, if you're trying to do this professionally and you're trying to look at this as an investment, it's got to be less than 1% of your bankroll. It's for fun, right? The parlays eat you alive. The juice kills you. I'm really looking if for example, if you're playing $100 bankroll, I'm putting less than $1 on it. And obviously you're probably playing more of a bankroll. I'm just using that as a benchmark number.
Yeah.
If you're heading into the Super Bowl with your buddies, instead of going to the casino with $500, you want to take $500 into the Super Bowl. Put $100 on the parlay, man, because at the end of the day, you're going to put $250 on the Chiefs. You'll put 50 on an anytime touchdown, 100 on a crazy parlay, and 100 on another crazy parlay. You're going in ready to lose that money. It's not necessarily degenerate gambling. It's you're having a good time. You're adding to the atmosphere. But if you have a bankroll set aside specifically to make money, to make this as an investment, take it seriously, you shouldn't be betting more than 1% of your bankroll on a parlay. And I mean that.
Yeah, right there with you. Because I'm just curious because, my key to victory this whole NFL season had been, two money line or if they were underdogs and I like them, or just a two-way parlay of like straight money line or, a spread pick with a money line. That's what I went with. So I was just curious to get your take with the player props and all that.
For sure.
Cash. Listen, man, this won't be, you know what? I'm going to tell you right now, this is not going to be the last time this year where we talk with each other because I still do want to get you on because trust me, I'm following that Instagram account. I'm seeing you with you hammering away at the NBA picks.
Oh, the NBA's been great, man.
I know you're 7-0, man. You're 7-0 on your big max bet. So I love to see that.
Yeah, it's been great.
So I'm definitely going to have you on to ask you about some NBA picks, maybe
For
even
sure.
to ask you about some hockey picks because I see you sprinkle in a couple hockey picks in there too.
Yeah, hockey's tough, man. Just for my client base, there's not much market out there for it. But when the playoffs hit, the market comes alive, and a lot of people are asking for NHL. So I really dive deep into it in the playoffs and weeks before the playoffs. But before that, it's hard just because basketball takes up so much time in the NFL. But I follow hockey closely, man. I'm still up to date in the markets. I just don't send it out as much because it's not as in demand for my clients.
There you go. So, Cash, enjoy the football. And as much as it pains me to say, go Chiefs.
There you go, man. Go
All
Chiefs.
right. There you go. That is Cash from Run My Bets. Always fun to talk to him. Thank you very much for listening on this Friday evening. Enjoy the Habs game. Early Habs game tomorrow, 12:30. Love that. Get to go out at night and not worry about the Canadiens. And then, again on Sunday, 12:30, puck drop against the Edmonton Oilers and Connor McDavid. Very, very fun game to be had, to be watched. And then the granddaddy of them all, the Super Bowl for Sunday night. Just can't wait for that game. It's going to be a great one either way, because if you're following me and Cash, you think that the Chiefs are going to win big. And if you're not following me and Cash, and if me and Cash lose, then, well, you get a good game in the Eagles winning, or maybe the Chiefs just winning by a slimmer margin than that, which I think everyone hopes for. Anyways, that's our show. Thank you very much for listening. Tony's back on Monday. We'll see you then.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaBita.tb, embrace your true nature. And La Cage. If the last time you went to La Cage was when the Habs won the cup, it's time you went back to La Cage. The menu will surprise you.